Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. How's everyone doing out there?
Good
Fabulous.
morning.
Woo!
Hey, Wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, hey, we are going to have our last episode of January here. It's January 31st, 2026, and we've got a whole variety of weather we were talking about in the preamble here. We've got people in Florida that have a rare rain going here 8 o'clock this morning, and people out further in Texas that are dealing with freezing temperatures and snow, which is a rarity, of course, out there, and all the infrastructure issues that come. And here in Michigan, we're just another single digit day. Nothing new here, nothing to see here, just 1 degree out. So, but that's the time of year that we're at. And but it's warm here in our hour-long episode of Voices of HealthPointe. And for those that are new to the program, this is where various coaches and clients gather together here 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time pretty much every Saturday for 1 hour just to talk all topics HealthPointe, and hopefully it's relevant for other coaches, aspiring coaches, clients, aspiring clients. And the way we typically do this is we'll have some docket items up front, and then we'll get into just a fun discussion and banter. And before you know it, the hour is wrapped up. And for those that aren't able to make it live or choose not to, these episodes do get uploaded onto the YouTube channel called Voices of HealthPointe. So with that, we got a couple of docket items. I'm going to do a docket item called The Forest, the Trees, and the Truth About Heart Disease. And then Carol is going to revisit a book that she mentioned last week, kind of a bit of a teaser called Small Habits, Big Results. And that is very, very relevant to the HealthPointe journey for sure. So very grateful for her to kind of tee that up as a docket item. And let me go ahead, and before I get started here, I'm going to do a mute all, and we'll get rolling here. All right. There we go. Okay, so we've got a mute all going. And guys, that means that as I wrap up my docket item, if you want to comment, and please do comment, that's where the fun is. You will need to unmute your mics as I've got it all muted right now. All right, so again, first, before we get started, I want to say the content shared here is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. Our discussions draw on wellness concepts similar to those found in the HealthPointe methodology, which we hold in very high regard. The ideas presented are independently developed and do not represent or speak on behalf of the HealthPointe brand. Okay, so the title of my docket item is The Forest, the Trees, and the Truth About Heart Disease. If you added together deaths from lung cancer, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and every other commonly discussed cancer, the total would still be lower than the deaths from cardiovascular disease. Heart disease remains a leading cause of death year after year, and yet it rarely commands the same urgency, fear, or cultural attention. Cardiovascular disease often unfolds quietly, explained away as aging, stress, or genetics, until it suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. The disconnect between risk and awareness is where Dr. Lily Johnston has deliberately positioned her work. What makes Dr. Johnston's perspective compelling is not only what she treats, but where she was trained to treat it. Her educational and clinical path runs through some of the most rigorous and recognizable institutions in medicine. She followed the classic high achievement trajectory, beginning with an elite undergraduate education at Princeton University, followed by medical training through institutions such as the University of California, San Diego. She completed advanced residency and fellowship training in vascular surgery at world-class centers, including Johns Hopkins affiliated programs, with further refinement of her clinical expertise through Mayo Clinic associated training. She is double board certified and highly skilled in complex vascular procedures. By every traditional metric of academic medicine, she did everything, quote unquote, right. And yet, she has become known for saying something that sounds almost paradoxical coming from a surgeon. I'm a vascular surgeon on a mission to put myself out of business. Okay, let me read that again. I'm a vascular surgeon on a mission to put myself out of business. She means this literally. Dr. Johnson is trained to perform what she calls stage 4 medicine: bypasses, stents, limb-saving vascular reconstructions. These procedures are often life-saving and unquestionably necessary in acute settings. She is not dismissive of surgery. She respects it deeply. But from her vantage point inside operating rooms, she has reached a sobering conclusion. Outside of true trauma cases, catastrophic injuries, or accidents, the vast majority of vascular surgeries represent the final chapter of a story that began decades earlier with silent metabolic dysfunction. For most people, that story begins far earlier and far more quietly. An annual physical, a routine blood draw, a lipid panel posted to a patient portal, total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, triglycerides, a few numbers highlighted in red or green, followed by either reassurance or concern. Excuse me, guys. I have a bit of actually, a little bit of coffee caught in my throat. That moment carries more weight than we often realize. LDL in particular has become the focal point of cardiovascular anxiety. When it is elevated, it can dominate the entire conversation, even when many other markers are improving. Weight drops, blood sugar stabilizes, triglycerides fall, energy improves, and yet LDL rises or remains stubbornly high. Rather than treating that number as a verdict, Dr. Johnson steps back and asks a more fundamental question. What is actually happening inside the artery themselves? To explain why this matters, she uses a metaphor that is simple, visual, and precise. LDL particles are trees. You cannot have a forest fire without trees. They are a necessary condition. But no one believes that trees alone cause fires. Forests exist all over the world with dense populations of tall, mature trees and never burn. The deciding factor is not the number of trees. It is in the environment those trees live in. Picture two forests. The first forest has a high density of trees. The ground is dry and brown. Brush is brittle. Grasses are dead. The air is hot. Wind moves constantly through the canopy. Rain has been scarce for months. Lightning storms roll through regularly. High voltage power lines cut across a landscape, occasionally snapping and throwing sparks onto the forest floor. This forest is a tinderbox. In this environment, fire is not a question of if, but when. The second forest has an equal number of tall trees, but the environment could not be more different. This is a lush rainforest. The soil is rich and damp. The air is humid. Greenery thrives at every level. Rain is frequent. The ecosystem is alive and self-regulating. Lightning is rare. There are no lines dropping sparks into the canopy. Even if a spark occurred, there is little fuel to sustain a fire. In this forest, fires struggle to exist at all. The trees are the same. The outcomes are radically different. This is the heart of Dr. Johnson's framework for understanding LDL. LDL particles are necessary for plaque formation, just as trees are necessary for a forest fire. But they are not sufficient. Atherosclerosis is ignited by the conditions of the biological environment: chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, endothelial injury, immune activation, and metabolic dysfunction. These are the dry brush, the wind, the lightning, and the sparking power lines. In a metabolically inflamed body, LDL particles are more likely to become oxidized, trapped in the arterial wall, and incorporated into plaque. In a metabolically stable body, those same particles may circulate for years without causing harm. Same trees, very different forest. The distinction matters because modern cardiovascular prevention often focuses almost entirely on counting trees rather than assessing the forest itself. Lowering LDL reduces available fuel, and in advanced disease, this can be life-saving. But cutting down every tree in every forest, regardless of conditions, ignores how ecosystems actually work. Trees have value. They are part of a larger system. This framework also explains why some metabolically focused individuals see LDL rise even as other markers improve. This pattern, sometimes described as lean mass hyperresponder, is acknowledged but not central in Dr. Johnson's thinking. To her, it is secondary. The primary question never changes. Is plaque forming? Is inflammation active? Is the arterial environment becoming more or less fire prone? And this is where she challenges a standard approach to risk assessment. Most conventional care relies on population level calculators based on age, cholesterol, blood pressure, and family history. These tools estimate probability. They do not tell you whether disease is actually present in your arteries today. A person can be labeled low risk and still have plaque developing quietly. Another can be labeled high risk and have clean arteries. Her recommendation is simple. Stop guessing, start looking. She outlines 3 imaging tools that allow clinicians and patients to see cardiovascular disease years before symptoms appear. The coronary calcium score, or CAC, is a non-contrast CT scan that detects calcified plaque. It is affordable and widely available, often ranging from $50 to $300, but it cannot detect early soft plaque. Her preferred screening tool is carotid intima media thickness, or CIMT. This ultrasound examines the carotid arteries in the neck and measures arterial wall thickness while detecting soft, vulnerable plaque. It involves no radiation, can be done in the office, and can be repeated over time to track change. Typical costs range from $150 to $500. The most advanced option is coronary CT angiography, or CCTA, which uses contrast dye and CT imaging to create detailed 3-dimensional images of the coronary arteries. With newer AI overlays, it can quantify soft versus hard plaque volume. It is powerful, but more expensive, and not her first choice for general screening. The unifying idea behind all 3 tools is clarity, not fear. Cardiovascular disease develops slowly, but insight and action matter at any age. Looking upstream is not about regret for what was done decades ago. It is about understanding what is happening now and responding intelligently. From Dr. Johnson's vantage point, the tragedy is not that surgery exists. It is that so often it becomes a default rather than the exception. Her mission is to reduce the need for late-stage interventions by helping people understand and address the environment that determines whether disease ever takes hold. This is what she means when she says she is trying to put herself out of business. The invitation is not to fear LDL or worship it. It's to understand it in context, to stop cutting down trees blindly and start tending to the forest. When you can see the environment clearly, the conversation changes. And when the conversation changes, so does the trajectory. Okay, guys, that is my docket item on titled The Forest, the Trees, and the Truth About Heart Disease. If you do have any questions, commentary, fun
Eric,
anecdotes. Yes, good
good
morning.
morning, Eric.
Good
I,
morning,
I
Zach. Hey,
love this topic. It is excellent. I do have a couple of things I can share because what I've learned over the years, we do become what we eat, okay, because the environment, right? Okay. And I came across a couple of things I want to share. One of them is called Which Organ Loves Which Food? And the heart is salmon. Salmon is good for the heart. Also, you got to build your immune system. We know that dynamic, and garlic is vital for that, for building the immune system. So that's one which organ loves which food. And then I have another, let's see, what's it called? The 12 vitamins you need after 40. I think most of us listening to this are after 40. Okay. And it starts out with cell, energy, and heart. OQ10. Very important. Okay. Immunity, collagen, vitamin C, heart and brain, omega 3, and bones and immunity, vitamin D, which K2, which we have all those in our Nutrite line. So I just want to share that with you. The 12 vitamins you need after 40, and which organ loves which food. And I hope that kind of enlightens some people's minds about what you do become what you eat. Just remember that. Just want to share that with you. And thank you, Eric. It was great information.
Thank you, Hank. And so true. Yes, CoQ10, omega. You mentioned the vitamin C. I know I'm missing
Garlic,
one. Yes,
garlic,
garlic.
great garlic tablets. People are afraid to eat garlic and they don't like the taste. Well, the garlic tablets we have in our Nutrilite, they go right down. They don't leave you with that taste like people don't like. I love garlic, but that's my background.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's great. Yes, you mentioned about the CoQ10, coenzyme Q10. That is, maybe it's just me. Sometimes, when you're kind of focused on something, you see it kind of pop up in other areas. Like if you buy a new car, suddenly you recognize that car every place on the highway, kind of that effect. But to me, I hear a lot about CoQ10, and of course, we've had it in the Nutrilite line for a long, long time, and definitely take that for sure.
that, that's,
Eric,
a, that's a great product that Dr. Al Sears in his anti-aging clinic here in Florida, he talks about CoQ10 all the time. And I
Mm,
read that in his letters all the time.
yes,
Eric,
yes,
uh,
Sharon. Good morning.
there is a diamond in California who was going to see. I can't recall the name of the doctor, but he'd written several books on heart and everything, and so this diamond was kind of struggling with some decisions to be made. So he went to this doctor, and and took his bottle of CoQ10, and he said, "I'm taking this." And is that what would you recommend? Because I think maybe he was trying to avoid surgery or something. Anyway, the doctor looked at it and he said, well, he gave Nutrilite a stamp of approval. He said, this is the best. And and the diamond said, well, how much should I take? And he probably specified later, but his first response was, as many as you can afford, which I thought was pretty funny. So anyway, it is important, certainly. And that's what several years ago when Jerry was going to the heart doctor, and they kept saying 1 year after another, you're going to have a pacemaker. Not now, but maybe next year. And they said that year after year. And so he got on CoQ10. I think I've said this before, but he got on the CoQ10, and every year that was avoided for year after year after year. And so, anyway, it really is a great help. It's not always an answer, of course. Nothing may be always an answer, but it certainly is something that we have available to us that is so, so good for the heart.
Hmm. Yes, it's interesting. Maybe we'll unpack that in future episodes. Maybe more about CoQ10. Um,
I
I don't.
recall my sister-in-law. Sorry for butting in.
No problem. Go for it.
Anyway, I recall my sister-in-law who used to work at a really good like a compounding pharmacy, a food supplement source, not like a GNC, but like really high quality kinds of things. And she told my mother that of all of the products she should be using, it would be CoQ10. So make sure you get her on CoQ10 was her advice to my brother at that time. So CoQ10 is really, I know that in my family, with our family history, heart issues have tended to be an issue or a concern, and I certainly will never go a day without CoQ10 for sure.
No, thanks.
Karen,
Thanks for that.
hey,
Yes.
so also I had a heart attack in my 40s. So my cardiologist also said if you take one supplement, take CoQ10.
Mm, boy, this is turning into the CoQ10 episode, and justly so. And what is it about, like Hank, you were mentioning about when you were making your initial comment, you were talking about those that are over 40, and yes, most of us are. It seems like things that are on the enzyme spectrum, we've talked about digestive enzymes and how after 40, that kind of starts declining. I guess, there's just a number of things. I mean, I've heard before, I don't know how true this is, scientifically, but I experience it. And that is, from an eyesight standpoint, if you're going to have, eyesight that kind of, starts trailing off and maybe you need glasses or contacts, that's generally coming in, sometime after 40. In other words, it's usually not after 20 or 30. And at the same time, it's not after 80. It's usually after 40. Things like this, eyesight, enzymes like digestive enzyme, you start losing some of that capability sometimes. And I certainly did. And that means that you just don't digest things as well. And you can be more bloated and so forth after meals, a very very uncomfortable part of lifestyle, but it comes on slowly. So you just kind of learn to adjust to it. And then you take one of the Neutralite products that fortunately was brought to my awareness by Marnie Fondren about our digestive enzyme. And oh my gosh, that it took about 30 days before it really started having the positive effect, but I virtually never feel bloated after eating a meal. And my point is that that's an enzyme product. And then you talk about, CoQ10. It's again an enzyme. It's a coenzyme, Q10. And so, something about maybe after 40, like you're talking about, Hank, where some of these things you can really kind of like bring back up, refortify with some of these enzymes, whether it's digestive or whether it's heart health. But clearly, with Eileen and Pam and Sharon, and Sharon's friend that she's talking about, as well as Jerry, the CoQ10 is a very, very valuable product for sure.
Eric,
Eric, this is Steve. I wanted to jump in
digestive enzyme. I want to throw that in because Dr. Vicki Nelson, most of you know her, she's the one who put me onto digestive enzymes way back when. And she said, before you start eating, take one digestive enzyme. And when you're done eating, take one other one. If you had a big meal, take two. And that's been a big, big help in my life because digestion I've had problems with when I was younger too. So just want to share that with you.
Thank you. Yep, it's a lifestyle changer for sure. I mean, if you can imagine, for pretty much breakfast, lunch, or dinner, anytime you eat, it's that bloated, uncomfortable feeling. Doing away with that is a real lifestyle changer for sure. Thank you, Hank and Steve. I think I heard you. Steve, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to piggyback on something Hank said a little while ago about you are what you eat. I just came across this report 2 days ago, and it's from a company in Florida called Healthy Florida First, and it's talking about the different toxins in two areas. One is in candy, which if you're on HealthPointe, you're not touching it. But before that, perhaps some folks are probably touching a lot of it. And the other thing is baby formula. And what they did, I'll start with baby formula. They took 24 different baby formulas. Only 8 out of the 24 appeared to be pretty clean. But the others had things like arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury, and pesticides. And they had different amounts or different parts of these toxins in them. Some just might have mercury in them as I'm looking at it. Others might have lead. Others may have arsenic. I see one with arsenic, lead, and cadmium, or I'm sorry, arsenic, mercury, and cadmium. One cadmium, lead, mercury. I mean, these are all heavy metal toxins. And once those things are in your cellular structure, they're hard to get out. Here's another one that's got 4 of those 5. Everything but
Jeez.
everything but pesticide in this one. And these are well-known names, well-known brands. And then in candy, and even if somebody's on HealthPointe, if they might hit a piece or two now and then, just know what the heck you're putting in your body. Well, not all of these, many of the list of candies, and there's a long list, and well-known ones. You know, there's Twizzlers, there's Kit Kat, there's Skittles, Sour Patch. I mean, all kind of candies here. Arsenic. And none of this stuff people know is on the label. I mean, it's not on the label, obviously. You know, they don't show how many parts per billion of arsenic are in this candy. These are things that, you know, are not shown. Just like when the Consumer Reports report came out, this was 13, 14 years ago, on the ready-to-drink protein shakes. And I first heard about it from a guy that was at the gym when I work out. And, you know, we get to talking, and he was talking about how he had always been drinking regularly Myoplex protein shakes. And he said, I had drank those things every day. And he said, I was having these severe headaches, and I didn't know why either. And then he said, one day, one of my buddies said, hey, did you see the recall on Myoplex and, you know, arsenic and lead and that kind of stuff? Now, you know, I'm hearing this as an anecdote, but boy, I was wondering, what's the real story? You know, how, you know, is that inflated, or what's the story? And then I forgot about it. And then about a year and a half or so went by, and I'm clicking on different links to do a little research on things. And I'll be doggone, I clicked on one and up pops the very thing. It was from Consumer Reports. They listed 13, maybe even 14 ready-to-drink protein shakes. And so there was Myoplex, there were 3 different muscle milks. The well-known celebrity trainer Jillian Michaels had one in there, which she has now pulled off the market. But next to all of these shakes, and some I'd never heard of, but apparently they're out there quite a bit. Next to the list of shakes was a grid sheet, and across the top, not necessarily in this order, but it had arsenic, lead, cadmium, and mercury, and then numbers beside each shake of what of those toxins were in those shakes. And of course, then it said, now if it's in bold black numbers, that's above acceptable levels. And I'm thinking, when is any of that stuff acceptable levels? Because it builds up in the body. The dentists tell you, get the silver out of your teeth, there's mercury in it. They've warned about kids chewing on old toys that have lead paint. I mean, so none of this stuff should be in our bodies. And then of course, Consumer Reports came out just this past year with another report on foods that have those chemicals in them. But the one, what I tell people, as far as we go with Nutrilite, one saving grace, if we are on XX, that creates a phase 2 enzyme, which is from the cruciferous plants. And that creates in the body phase 2 enzyme. And what that does, and this was certified by NSF, it does this. It breaks down insoluble toxin molecules into the soluble form, so good hydration can wash that stuff out of our body. So if nothing else, that's a good reason to promote XX, because there are things in foods and candies and formula that people just aren't aware of, and they are not being told unless a company like Healthy Florida First or some of the other Consumer Reports or others do some research on the stuff that people are putting in their body. So just a little, FYI, guys. But when Hank was talking about, you are what you eat. If you want to be a test tube full of chemicals, go for it. So back to
Wow.
you.
I want to linger on this. I'm sure a lot of people want to linger on this one. Um, so what I'm hearing is, broadly speaking, we're talking about baby formulas, we're talking about candies, we're talking about, previously some articles that were out regarding some of the ready to drink protein shakes. I think of more recently in an episode, David Munoz talked about, I think it was 15 out of 24 or 18, like 70% of the dry protein powders that
Hmm.
consumers reports, did a test on same thing. I think that was
Yeah.
lead in there. So lots and lots of opportunities to get
Yep.
these heavy metals into your body.
Oh man.
And and then
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Yep.
was going to say the if you want to go to the website, it's exposingfoodtoxins.com. Exposingfoodtoxins.com. That's the site for Healthy Florida First, and you can see the formulas and the candy that have toxins in them. So exposingfoodtoxins.com.
Excellent. No, that's huge, providing this resource, because, how do we take action on this? Having a resource like that where we can look into it, exposingfoodtoxins.com. And then circling back around to something that I have heard you unpack before, Steve, but I'm sure everyone wants you to kind of linger on it a bit. You're talking about in double X. And for those,
Mm-hmm.
I assume that most people are aware of that product, but if they're not, certainly people that are on HealthPointe, the bulk of them in their product package and their monthly subscription are going to get the 31-day double X, which is a multivitamin, multi-mineral, and so forth. It's amazing. And what you are referencing, I've heard you reference this before, is that it creates a phase 2 enzyme that breaks down insoluble elements into soluble, so therefore can clear
Right.
out of the body.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
that
is key. That is a key one-liner right there. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm familiar, and this, this resonates with me. There's some protocols in integrative oncology where, I mean, is very much, right? One of the key things that's looked at in integrative oncology is toxic load, toxic environment. The way I frame it is, you can be doing everything right, but if you live next to Chernobyl, okay, obviously we're talking about a, a nuclear, place, then, all bets are off because you live next to Chernobyl or Fukushima or whatever. So we're talking about toxic load. So all of us in the modern era are exposed to one degree or another to some toxic load. People are spraying their lawns, we're talking about all kinds of different things. But the point is, what are some protocols and ways to get this out? And there are some things that are practiced in integrative oncology, using, some pectin type approaches and so forth, where the way I frame it, and maybe people can relate to this, is if you've ever had a dog that's gotten into like a rat poison, and you take it to a vet, maybe nobody else has experienced this. Full disclosure, I've had this run in more than once with our dogs, where they get into it, and it's obviously a big deal. And one of the things that they'll do is do a charcoal treatment, okay, for this dog. Okay, so there are these processes to try to get this toxin out of the body. And so understanding that within the double X Neutralite product, there is this phase 2 enzyme process. Wow, that is really, really great to linger on and understand and know more. That's a huge value. And candidly, not one that I'm overly familiar with. So I so appreciate you bringing this up.
Yeah, that is an absolutely fabulous nutrition that we've got, and they were 7 or 8 things specifically that they verified in double X. Here's another thing I was just wondering about. I just found out about the other day. All right, so energy and focus, now on the bottle, there's the NSF label. But
Ooh,
yet, looking at the website, I'm thinking, well, why isn't that shown on the website? And so I was in contact with one of the customer service reps, and they did a little digging, and they got back to me, and they said, well, the bottle of Energy and Focus is certified, but the blister pack is not. And so, because both of those things are on the same website page, they aren't putting that certification up. And so I've asked, I haven't got a reply yet, but I asked, well, what's the big deal? They're the same product, just one's in a bottle, one's in a blister pack. And my reply was, or the reply to me was, we're not authorized, or how do you put it? We're not privy to that information. I forwarded it to the right departments, and they'll get back to me. So it's on the bottle. If you have an Energy and Focus bottle that's got, the new ones will show the NSF label on it, which is great. But the blister pack, for whatever reason, even though it's the same product, it's not showing certification.
Actually, that's really kind of cool nuance there, Steve, because to me, that's a real positive because we often, we're in a fortunate position that we can cite NSF certified for so many of the products. And it's a very big distinction between us and, the other, many other products that are on the market. And so I really like the tightness that they have where literally it can be the same product. You make this batch of product, in this case, the Excess Energy and Focus, and these same tablets, they're coming and being packaged in, and this group of tablets goes into a bottle that gets the NSF stamp, but these others that go into a blister pack, those don't. And I would say yet, I'm sure they're working on that process, but the fact that it's carried or packaged in a different material, I mean, it shows how tight those standards are in order to be able to pass, is the way I view it. I don't know about you, Steve, or anybody else for that matter.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It really does.
I think you could put a real positive spin. Well, it's a positive spin anyway, but when you're talking with a customer about quality control and not making overclaims, to be able to tell a little story like that, or tell a little story like the double X with the enzyme in it. I mean, those don't have to be big, elaborate scientific stories. These are just little stories that people can relate to about the tightness of Neutralite and why it's so important to stay in that product line because of its quality control. And I don't know, I haven't looked in the catalogs. And of course, oh gosh, I don't even know what month it is here. I think we got new catalogs. So looking in that and seeing, uh, is there an NSF on the full bottle and not on the tablets? The pack.
The blister pack? Yeah, no,
Yeah,
there isn't. There isn't.
there isn't on either one of them.
On the bottle, there is.
Okay, in the catalog,
Oh, in the catalog,
it might be interesting because then
I
that would
don't
be
know.
another visual to back up with if in fact one was and one wasn't. But anyway, the story is great and yeah, quality control.
I'm wondering if maybe, like quality control that, like Carol said, it may be as simple as, the Amway lawyers are pretty tight about everything we
Yeah.
say and everything we claim. And it may just be that when they test that, they've tested the one in the bottle. They've not tested the one in the blister pack. And so they're not going to let us claim that until they do that. So it may be as simple as that.
Now, Eric or Carol or Sharon, any of you have any knowledge about the new facility that they're putting in Amway? Because when I was talking to one of the customer service reps the other day, she said, I asked about the Center for Optimal Health and that kind of, she said, well, that's going to still be in California and it's just production at the facility here in Michigan. We were told that when we were there doing that tour that the whole shebang was going to be moved. Did any of you guys know anything
I
about it?
do. I definitely do. I put time and effort into it, but I don't have any absolute clarity. But here's what I know. So I, as recently as, well, let me back up. Over the summertime, okay, so this summer 2025, we passed through that area on the way to our cottage. So on the way back, I stopped by and popped in there, both at the headquarters and then at the, it's over on, anyhow, it's to the west of headquarters. What is that? Spalding. Okay. And I pulled in there, and as many of you might know, they've really revamped that area. If you haven't been to Ada, Michigan in a couple of years, you almost won't recognize it. And including the headquarters there is really, really revamped. So first I went to the headquarters. I asked about the Center for Optimal Health, and I understood it was out on Spalding. They said, yep. And I bopped over there. And at that time, what the gentleman, there's a guard shack, right? So I was talking with him, and he said, actually, right now there's a group, that booked ahead. I think they were from Columbia, some business owners organization that was from Columbia that was in that building, kind of getting what I understood was a tour. Now, bear in mind, the context of this is not an official person on this. This was the person, a very knowledgeable young man, but at the guard shack there, that was telling me about that. And I said, okay, well, the reason I'm interested in this is because, like you were saying, Steve, a number of us have been out in California where we literally were on the last day, like the last tour of that program out there in Buena Park, and understood that it was going to be built out over here in Michigan. And he said, yes, that's kind of what he understood. I said, great. All right. So this was a work in progress, etc. They were still doing a lot of work on the headquarters there, kind of a new entranceway, all this kind of stuff there. So I circled back around there, was going through, this is maybe a couple of months ago. And what I heard this time, now this was at the headquarters, I was talking with kind of one of the official tour, front desk type people, is he did not understand that was going to be something like it was out at Buena Park. And I was like, oh, okay. But he couldn't really tell me more, but he did put me in contact. He asked if I wanted to be, I said, are there tours available? Because that's the other thing too, is how historically, for those that have been into Ada at headquarters, you could pop in there on a Monday afternoon and walk in the front door and kind of go through that, your own self tour where you can go through the history of the company, go into where that movie theater is. And it's really kind of a fun experience. That is now not so open like that. I think it's still available, but requires a scheduling and kind of like an official appointment and tour type thing, which is what we experienced out at Buena Park. And so the people that coordinate those did reach out to me, sent me an email, and they still were not clear on what the Neutralite specific portion of things were going to be. But they did say that in terms of at the headquarters themselves, which will include a tour. Well, first of all, you can book, I think, up to 25 people with a minimum of 3 weeks advance notice. So I was thinking those of us in Michigan, maybe we get together and carpool up there, whatever. That does include in that tour a portion of viewing the tableting, kind of the manufacturing portion of the Neutralite line. So that's what I understood. I'd have to go back and look at that email again. But in terms of having that more historical experience like we had in Buena Park, that's still not clear. But this is what I know so far. And that was as of a couple of months ago.
Well, thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Eric, I can, Laurel here, I can nose around a little. My son works at Amway, and he used to be pretty high up in the security department, and then they outsourced that. Anyway, now I don't know exactly what he does, but he did mention, because he's been out to the farms and stuff, and he flies out to Buena Park I think that group of employees is under his, I don't know, whatever it is he does.
Jurisdiction.
Yeah, I don't know. But he knows a lot, and he used to be in charge of the employee store as well. So he knows a lot about a lot of context of the products. But he mentioned at one time, it's probably a year ago, about they're moving the whole thing because they want it all under the world headquarters umbrella. But he hasn't said much lately. So usually when I ask questions, if he can tell me, he'll tell me. If not, he says, well, like Carol and I were asking him something the other day, and we got the corporate statement, and I knew that was saying, "Mom, don't ask this." but
Mm.
but I can ask him and see if he knows. I'll just ask him what the plan is, anything new, anything updated, because he sometimes knows. I mean, he told me the other day about our excess with rhodiola. They have another flavor that they're planning, lemon lime, I guess it is. And
Yeah.
and he said they're holding that for a while because the electric lemon has made such a big hit. They don't want to dip into their volume that everybody's buying electric lemon. So I said, "Oh, okay." I mean, he just mentioned that. So little things like that sometimes he'll tell me that aren't like corporate secrets or not for full disclosure. So I'll ask
Yeah.
around.
Well, do you want to share the other thing he told you? I thought was interesting, and it goes back into quality control and how tightly they check things. That was the issue of the other flavor. I don't know whether it was the third one that they were looking at and shelved.
Yeah. There, what flavor was that? There was, the
I
one
don't
that
know
they're
if it,
putting muscle multiplier in. That's what it was.
yeah, I think that
He
was the
said,
third phase, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
he said they've paused that right now. They've taken that off the list of things they're going to put out, at least for now, because the muscle multiplier, when it's in the can for more than, do you remember how long it was, Carol? 3 months?
Yeah, I don't
4 months,
remember
something like that.
exactly either.
Anyway, for a time that is reasonable that some people might have it on their shelf, it changes the flavor, and it also it deteriorates. In other words, you're not getting the muscle multiplier that they say is in there because after 3 months it doesn't work well. So anyway,
So it
that was the
compromises
other.
his quality is kind of, again, the quality check.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here walking and talking. I'm in a neighborhood where I'm new, and I just walked up the driveway and stood and talked and realized it wasn't my driveway as they opened the garage and I saw two cars. I'm gonna get arrested here. All these houses look alike. Oh well. Anyway,
That's
Hey,
so
Eric, I
good.
look. Eric, we just checked the catalog and no, the energy and focus is not showing NSF label in the catalog.
On either one?
Neither one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the label on the energy and focus, gosh, I threw the bottle away. If I remember correctly, it's on the back side, and they're showing the front side of the product.
Yep.
I'll double check here, but I'm sure
But
that's
what
what
I'm wondering
I
is
saw.
when you go on the online and you pull up the picture of the bottle, the tablet bottle, and you can see front and back pictures on those. Uh, does it show on that, or you could share that with a client? Uh, on the bottle.
I will bring that up, but I'm pretty sure it does not from what I've seen. It's showing. Yeah, they're not showing the back side of it.
Oh,
They
and
show
any
the,
of the pictures?
yeah, no, just the bottle in the front, and then they show the ingredients part of it. And yeah, they're not,
There's not multiple pictures.
Hey,
nope.
Carol,
Hmm.
I just looked at the bottle and it's the NSF label is on the side. It's if the bottle is facing you, it's on the left-hand side. And so it's
Okay.
really not, if they're doing front and back, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, then we can screenshot it, shoot it, send it over, and say this is the tightness of, you buy this bottle and it's NSF.
Yeah, I think this is a really great, story to talk, more broadly in the context that we seem to come back time and time again on these episodes, and that is the safety and the efficacy of this product line. It just, even for those of us that seem to be a bit seasoned in this space and familiar seemingly deeply with these products, I mean, it becomes so apparent so often, and when we really dive into this, and the compare and contrast to what people might be taking, thinking they're doing well with supplements that they're buying, or protein powders, or ready-made protein shakes, as you were talking about, Steve. It's just, this is paramount. And, to be able to know that when we're getting somebody started on, let's say, HealthPointe formally, and the comfort, the pride, the solidness of being able to help somebody get engaged in a program with coaches that involves, supplementation, and to know that these have these types of tight standards and protocols. I mean, such that even if it is the same gosh darn product, but one goes into a bottle and one goes into a blister pack, they're not going to just shout to the world that this is all NSF. They're going to be tight and right. And I think that is a great thing. That is a really great thing, and just so important in this broader context of helping people get healthier. And part of that is the Neutralite line, and knowing what it does, and how safe it is.
And
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Finish your thoughts.
No, please go, Sharon. I'm going to circle back because it's not a different topic. I'm circling back on something else that Steve mentioned.
Okay. I just wanted to say I really appreciate you saying earlier that you were taking a product and it took about 30 days for you to really tell a difference. We have to remember that our bodies didn't get in the shape they're in overnight. And sometimes to bring them out into the shape we want, it just takes some consistency, without thinking that everything has some of the products are instant. You can see instantly, some of them, but if not, just know the high quality, and the fact that it may take time for you to right something that's been wrong for so many years, and just don't give up.
That's a great point.
Very, very great point. And it was lost on me, and I just have to say that I learned this from Marnie Fondren, right? So, like you said, Sharon, there's some things like if you take the excess energy and focus that we've been talking about here, that Steve is talking about, that's something where you're not going to have to wait 30 days. That's something that you're going to take, and it's pretty much an immediate effect. You feel that energy. It's amazing. But I remember sharing with Marnie back when she first recommended this to me. I got back with her, I don't know what it was, after like a week or something. I was like, yeah, thanks for the suggestion, but it's not working. She's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I just don't feel any different. She's like, well, we just talked about it the other day. I don't remember how she said it. She was very sweet about it, but she's like, do this. These things take some time. Why don't you try taking it and evaluate it after 30 days, which was very reasonable to me. I wasn't like, ready to jump off, the ship just because of that. I was just making the comment that I didn't think it was working. And oh my gosh, I'm so thankful that she said that, because after about 30 days, life was good. The bloating was gone, and I've enjoyed that ever since. So yes, Sharon, these things, and thank goodness for having community and coaches and relationships. I'm very grateful for Marnie Fondren. She has such deep wisdom on so many of these topics. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Sharon, I was asking you a question, I think it was this morning, maybe last night, about digestive enzymes and the safety of taking them with the other vitamins.
Yes.
And you gave me an answer. Would you share that with folks? Because I thought it was very valuable.
Yes, the digestive enzymes are incredibly great. And if anybody I mean, there are some people that just really need them all the time. The thing you should just be aware of is that you don't want to take the digestive enzymes with your carb blockers or your probiotics, because the carb blockers and the probiotics have to do extra work there. And if you take them with the digestive enzymes eat them up. and so you may think you're taking carb blockers, but the digestive enzyme has eaten it up. and so
They
and
want to
so
work.
so anyway, and the probiotic has to get down to the gut, and so you don't want it to have to fight harder to get down to the gut. So when you're taking your probiotic, just don't take a digestive enzyme within like 45 minutes of that, because you want it to work. Thank you, Carol. Yes.
Yeah, and there's one other thing, if you could just highlight is, let's say you're taking your probiotic and your fiber or your beginner, whatever, gut health, you're taking it in the morning, and you take that with, a glass of room temperature water or whatever. How long after that is it safe then to drink, say, a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? Because that's typically people's morning routine. And, or probably even a better question is, what temperature would it be safe to take it where you're not counteracting the properties of the probiotics that you just took?
Well, I'm not sure about the exact temperature, but I do know that if you're taking, say, the Begin or any probiotic, you don't want something like, you wouldn't probably have a really hot cup of coffee or a hot cup of tea, because you're gonna damage it. You might even kill it. And so I would say that you want to wait 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, just to be safe before you take something hot. So because we these products are great and they work, but we need to inform ourselves the best way to help them work. And
Yeah.
that's what I love about this Health Point walk and talk, is we learn so much. But yeah, you want to be careful taking anything too hot, along with that probiotic or the Begin, any of them. So we wait like 30 minutes before we have our hot tea. So
Thank you. I think that's very important for people in their morning routine, as many do take probiotics or some type of the gut health that we've got in our catalog of products. So it's nice to know that, so you can time things out and create that habit of knowing even set your little timer on your phone or whatever, and build that in. So I have to really tell Sharon and Eric, obviously, Steve, Laurel, and all of you. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have never mentioned any names, because it's all of you. But your input, especially on these Saturday mornings, because this is the platform we can do it more comfortably and we've got time. I think that is so valuable. I mean, I've been around this block for many years, and I learn every time. I learned from Eric's articles. I learned from Laurel sent a great article on gratitude. I sent that to a whole bunch of people. Sharon with her comments here on how to take supplements. I just everything. Steve and Muscle Multiplier. I think he sold the world on Muscle Multiplier, and it just goes on and on. Forgive me if I'm not highlighting you, and because every one of you have been so valuable. But I just want to say personally from Hank and Hank has been so valuable. I'm usually the mouth, but when
amen.
he speaks, I mean, his stuff really counts. And so on behalf of both of us, we just really want to thank all of you, the whole community, and we just invite new people to come in, because when you listen to things like this and you see that people really have a heart for everybody's health, And this isn't a thing about what product I can sell you or what I can do this or that or control or power or anything. It's all about people helping people towards a healthier way of life. And sometimes we have to do a lot of research out in the marketplace to get the valuable information that we get in 1 hour time on a Saturday morning. So thank you, Eric, and thank you, all of you, community, all of you that participate. We love contributors.
Yes, this has been it's just always so fun. And it's, what's so fun is that we just never know where these episodes are going to go. Here's what I want to circle back on briefly. We're really wrapping up on time here, but I want to circle back on this, and then we can kind of do a bit of a wrap up. So I actually looked up, Steve, and thank you again so much. I think this is going to be, I'm going to tattoo this on my forehead now, because we're talking about phase 2 detoxification. Okay, so what you went through, Steve, first of all, in terms of the sources of these, heavy metals, lead, mercury, arsenic, etc. All right, so I did some quick research. I'm going to dig into this. And for those that are listening to this later on a recording on YouTube, just benchmark this at the end of the episode and just review this, and then do your own looking into it. You can just come to whatever minute 56 on the YouTube video. But here's what it shows. So of course it's accurate and true. Here's what it says. Neutralite XX is formulated to support the body's phase 2 detoxification pathways, primarily in the liver, rather than directly, and this was the term that I couldn't recall from my integrative oncology, it's called chelation, rather than directly chelating or mechanically removing heavy metals like lead in the way medical chelation agents do. The key idea is biochemical transformation. Phase 2 enzymes take fat-soluble or reactive compounds that are difficult for the body to eliminate and convert them into water-soluble forms so that they can be safely excreted through bile or urine. This is the critical step that prevents toxins from being reabsorbed and recirculating. Key phase 2 pathways include glutathione conjunction, sulfation, methylation, amino acid. We can get into a lot of detail. Let me kind of drop down to what I was familiar with, and that is what's called MCP. So this is something that we study called, MCP, or modified citrus pectin. This is where it can physically bind certain heavy metals like lead, mercury, or cadmium in the gut and bloodstream. Once bound, these metals are less likely to be reabsorbed and are carried out of the body. MCP is also studied for galactin-3 modulation, which is why it shows up frequently in integrative oncology. Blah, blah, blah. Let me kind of give a key simple comparison. Think of it this way. MCP, because you'll hear this, in terms of clearing toxins, modified citrus pectin, MCP, is like a sponge that grabs unwanted material and escorts it out. Okay, I learned a lot about that in the cancer realm and, our exposure to toxins and so forth. So again, MCP is like a sponge that grabs unwanted material and escorts it out. Neutralite XX is like upgrading the liver's internal machinery so it can package toxins correctly before export. Let me see if there's anything else that might be useful here in this episode.
What are you reading out of, Eric? Where's this source?
I just did some quick research on it. I just typed in some of those. Yes. Binding agents help reduce reabsorption and recirculation. Phase 2 support prevents reactive intermediates from causing damage.
Do you think this includes plastics?
It's a good question, because we've talked about that, right? Microplastics. I do not know. But maybe we'll save that for the next episode.
There's your docket item, Eric.
There we go.
Go to work.
Yeah, just Yeah, just buy the new water purifier because that takes out microplastics.
That's
There we
right.
go.
So
There
that
we go.
helps.
Yep, that helps, in terms of any more input of those microplastics, definitely have your eSpring water treatment system at your sink, under your sink, whatever model you prefer. That's big time. But geez, yeah. So there we go, guys. This episode started talking about, LDL and, the forest and the trees. And then we segue into a beautiful topic, focus, or one of the topics, talking about our wonderful Double X product and phase 2 detoxification pathways. Thank you again, Steve, on that, and everybody on that. Any other comments, upcoming notes, or anything before we wrap up?
Eric, be sure go to exposingfoodtoxins.com, download, print off that information, because that is a real good thing to be able to kind of, show as evidence to somebody and say our Double X will help remove these toxins from your body.
Right.
I'm going to do that. I use it. I use that Consumer Reports thing with the protein shakes to tell, give people the idea that, gosh, I don't know what's in the stuff I'm eating necessarily, and here's a good reason to take Double X. So FYI.
Love it, and easier and more attractive than stamping it on my forehead. Thank you, Steve. No tattoos on my forehead.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to see that, Eric. That might be a new look, man.
Eric's going to get a new cap.
Have our secret tattoos, right? The nutrition gang, right? We'll have our own secret tattoos. Phase 2 detoxification pathways. It'd be a great conversation starter, wouldn't it? Right? Oh, we have fun. Well, gosh, again, so grateful for this community, for our tribe of our pack, Laurel. Thank you for reminding from last episode, our pack. And guys, next week we'll be into February, and I guess we'll plan on seeing everybody next week, same time, same place. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you,
Bye.
all of you.
Great
Thank
week.
you, Eric.
See you guys.
Everyone.
Bye.